This video explains the signs that show that an old Sikh leader in Punjab state in India wants to be Emperor of Punjab and ensure succession to his descendants. Hello friends, this is Unmasked Truth with Harmanjeet Saini, where I provide unique analysis of world events based on the unmasked truth that after surrender, Germany continued World War II clandestinely and became a killing machine. I also provide true news that you will find nowhere else. In my video of November 15, 2021 titled Caution to Sikhs and Punjabis who took advantage of German incentives for acquiring riches, I mentioned the case of a top Sikh politician in Punjab state in India. This particular politician took advantage of German financial incentives, meaning he murdered an American of Britain. He became the Chief Minister of Punjab state. The tragedy with this politician is that he also orchestrated the murder of thousands of Sikh youth who may have at some times expressed opposition to his rule. The Germans counseled their alliance partners to eliminate all competitors by any and all means, including murder. This builds up their reputation as brutal to those who get in their way. They also want them to murder more of their people to prove that they will be ruthless to receive full support from the Germans. That's what this particular politician did. You can see Narendra Modi and Ajay Mohan Bish, the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh state, following the same playbook in India. Germans promised and advised their alliance partners to obtain absolute control of their country or territory by any and all means. Such individuals allied with them often have to murder their opponents or those who criticize them. They go on to murder tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of their own citizens to remain in power. The Germans are the most diabolical and treacherous people on the face of the earth because they get their strategies from Satan, whom they obey without question. Satan, the devil, even communicates with them directly by putting thoughts into their minds. The term diabolical is derived from the word devil because of his cunning, craftiness, treacherous, and unethical nature. They make similar promises to leaders of the enemies they want to destroy and continue to urge them to war so that they destroy themselves. There are three great cases of rulers who exemplify those who follow such evil German advice. First is the example of Saddam Hussein of Iraq. The Germans wanted to take revenge on the Iraqis because they occupied the ancient lands of the Germans when they were known as the Assyrians. They wanted to kill as many Iraqis as possible. So they supported Saddam Hussein in his bid to take over rule in Iraq. Saddam Hussein was from a minority tribe. That means his rule would likely be opposed by people from majority tribes, and he would have to maintain his rule by murdering all opponents. That's what Saddam Hussein did, murdering tens of thousands of his countrymen. Then they inveigled him into a war with Iran, and that is the Germans, inveigled him into a war with Iran in which perhaps more than 500,000 died on both sides. Other estimates put the casualties on both sides between 1 to 2 million. Once a dictator has established himself, then the Germans urge him to expand his empire in order to become an emperor. So the Germans then inveigled Saddam Hussein to annex Kuwait, leading to the first Gulf War with a coalition headed by the United States and Britain, with Iraq suffering 20 to 50,000 dead. The Gulf War was immediately followed by a civil war in which 85,000 to 230,000 Iraqis perished. Finally, the Second Gulf or Iraqi War, launched in 2003, deposed and captured Saddam Hussein. He was then hanged. But the killings in the aftermath of that war continue to this day. Hundreds of thousands of Iraqis have perished in the war since 2003. The Germans have gleefully enjoyed their revenge against the Iraqis beyond their wildest dreams. The second example is that of Idi Amin of Uganda. Germans wanted revenge on Ugandans for fighting them in Second World War as part of the British African armies. So they helped Idi Amin from a minority tribe come to power who would have to maintain his rule through violence and murder. It is estimated that around 300,000 Ugandans lost their lives during 8 years of Idi Amin's brutal rule. After Idi Amin was established as ruler, he followed the playbook suggested by the Germans, building up his military and then beginning to lay claim to territories of his neighbors to establish an empire. He first voiced his views that certain Kenyan and South Sudan territory was historically part of Uganda. Amin backed down after a terse warning from Kenya and deployment of its troops. Tensions with neighbor Rwanda uh, uh, were also present. In 1978, fighting started between troops loyal to Idi Amin and a rival. The fighting spilled into Tanzanian territory, and Idi Amin laid claim to Tanzania's Kagera region. Tanzanian President Julius Nyerere then ordered an invasion of Uganda, capturing its capital Kampala on 11th April 1979 and ousted Amin from power. Amin fled into exile first to Libya, then Iraq, finally landing in Saudi Arabia, where he died on 16th August 2003. Following the German suggested playbook led to hundreds of thousands of Ugandans losing their lives. Germany got its revenge on the Ugandans for fighting against them in World War II. The third example is that of Yasser Arafat. After Second World War, the Jews were hunting Nazis all over the world for crimes during the Holocaust. The Germans wanted to hit back at the Jews and make life miserable for them. Palestinians were the ideal group to exploit for that purpose, as they fought with the Jews for the same land. They groomed a Palestinian named Yasser Arafat living in Egypt. They promised that they would make him king of the Islamic world if he worked with them. To obtain their help, he had to fight Jews in Israel. They first tried to install him as king of Jordan when the Palestinians fought with Jordan's King Hussein for control of the country. He and the Palestinians lost that war, and Arafat was booted out of the country and went to Lebanon. Then the Germans promised Lebanon to Arafat. He was booted out of there by the Israelis because the Palestinians there kept fighting with Israel. Then the German masqueraders, Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and Shimon Peres, inveigled the Israelis to allow Arafat to come to Israel and take over the Palestinian Authority. While not king of his independent country, Arafat still became ruler over the Palestinian people. The same strategy is being followed by the Germans in dealing with the Sikh leader in Punjab. They put the idea into his head decades ago that he should become the king of Punjab, build up a strong army, and then expand his kingdom and become an emperor. Their true motive is to use him like they used Saddam Hussein and Idi Amin to destroy as many Punjabis as he can, while trying to establish himself as king, then by killing all the Sikhs or Punjabis who oppose his rule, then build a strong military and expand his kingdom by laying claim to neighbors' territory and attacking them. This aging Sikh leader and his son have become as gullible as Saddam Hussein and Idi Amin. He has already murdered thousands and perhaps tens of thousands of innocent Sikh youth in a quest to establish his reputation as a ruthless leader who will show no mercy to anyone who opposes him. This Sikh leader lacks vision and an analytical mind, so that he does not realize that Punjab has no manufacturing infrastructure to manufacture any of the modern weapons of warfare to be able to gain independence from India and establish his kingdom. He obviously cannot establish an autonomous kingdom within India. But to inveigle him into going along with the German plan, he was promised that the German allies, Modi's Gujarat state and Rajasthan are on his side. He has swallowed that ridiculous promise hook, line, and sinker. The unfortunate part is that this man heads a religious party and can depend on some less educated members of his party who are willing to fight on his behalf even to death. Then he has found kindred souls among perhaps thousands of Sikhs who live mainly in the United Kingdom, USA, and Canada, with a few in India who, like him, have taken advantage of the German financial incentives by murdering an American or Briton. During the past 40 years or so, I noticed a change in the look that Sikh political leaders were projecting to their followers. Most Sikhs don't cut the hair on their head or trim their beards or mustaches. They don't let a razor come to any part of their body hair. But about 40 years ago, most of them generally tied their beards neatly. They did not keep it open, flowing down, and scraggly looking. That changed about 40 years ago. All Sikh leaders from the religion based political party began donning that look. I thought Sikhs were regressing because, in my opinion, that look makes a person look unkempt, uncouth, unruly, much like the Taliban. I did not appreciate that look. I was sure most women and girls also form a similar impression of such persons. Also, a semi-literate Sikh leader named Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale came on the scene around that time, who promoted that look, enjoining all Sikhs to stick to the quote-unquote pure Sikh faith and keep free-flowing beards and mustaches. He and his followers toted guns to intimidate Sikhs who would not follow what he preached. And initially, Bhindranwale was propped up by a Sikh leader, Gyani Zail Singh, from Indira Gandhi's Congress party. But then this top Sikh political leader, who wants to be Emperor of Punjab, won him over to his side. For the past 40 years, I privately lamented this regressive behavior on the part of Sikhs, but did not speak about it. But just a few days ago, I came across a video forwarded by a friend that finally led me to understand what really happened about more than 40 years ago. This video shows a young woman working in an office going to a Sikh in the office to complain about another office worker, Vikram, harassing her regularly with phone calls and messages. This particular Sikh fellow employee, Gurnam Singh, wears a turban and has a scraggly, free-flowing beard and mustaches. Gurnam Singh tells her that he'll talk to Vikram and he'll not harass her again. While they were talking, the office manager passed by and noticed the woman talking to Gurnam Singh. Then he goes to his office and another employee, Prakash, comes in to get some signatures. The manager asks Prakash why, when young women have a problem in the office, they don't come to him but go to Gurnam Singh instead. They also don't go to the other Sikhs in the office who have either trimmed their beards or mustaches or cut the long hair on their head. Prakash then explains to the manager that the reason behind it is belief and trust. This trust was developed not in 2 to 4 days but over 200 to 400 years of history. The manager then tells Prakash that there are other Sikhs in the office. Isn't there trust in them? Prakash answers that there is a difference between them and Gurnam Singh. Then the video goes on to show how in the history of Punjab, Muslim rulers valued the head of an unshorn dead Sikh with full flowing beard and mustaches highly, paying 60 gold bars, and did not value the head of a dead Sikh who had compromised with his faith and cut off his long hair. He said the heads of the unshorn Sikhs can make him occupy the throne of Lahore, the seat of government in Punjab, because it was only these unshorn Sikhs who were opposing him. The reason was that Sikhs with unshorn hair and untrimmed beards and mustaches, who have not let a razor come to any part of the hair on their body, when remembering their Guru, asked for only one blessing, that the Sikh faith remains with him till the end of his life, meaning that they never give up their faith even if put to death. Thus, belief and trust in them has been developed by their willingness to have their blood shed to protect their people and the helpless. The purpose in putting out such videos is to convince Sikhs to keep long flowing beards and untrimmed mustaches. It is a pure propaganda video prepared and issued under threats by the allies of the Germans and Sikhs who are under their thumb because they have murdered someone to take advantage of financial rewards offered by them. There is no proof that women and girls will go to a Sikh with a flowing, scraggly looking beard and mustaches with their problems of harassment by others because they trust them, more than a Sikh with a trimmed beard who ties a turban, as he can be easily recognized as a Sikh. No one has done any such service to find out, any such survey to find out. In fact, young women may be repelled by the unkempt appearance. And the fact is that such videos have been made to deceive Sikhs so that they do not groom themselves well so that they can look their best. Sikh political leaders who are under the thumbs of the Germans are cowards who have given in to their threats and promote this negative lifestyle and grooming habits to harm Sikhs' interests so that some of their own young women may be driven away from them. The whole diabolical, cunning strategy of the Germans is to darken, that means darken their body color, to darken Sikhs and Punjabis in body color, as they have done in the United States, Britain, France, and other northwestern European nations by propaganda, such as portraying blondes as dumb, and Italian and other darker people with propaganda lines such as tall, dark, and handsome, and by promoting interracial marriages with threats. Once, over a few generations, such nations become darker looking. Then the Germans will be able to boast that they are the fairest looking people on earth. They have already somewhat achieved their goal of darkening these nations by forcing interracial marriages among Western European white Americans with the darker Italians, Hispanics, and even African Americans. They have achieved that also in Punjab among the Sikhs by impoverishing the Sikhs by denying them jobs and business opportunities or discriminating against them in promotions, forcing them with threats and propaganda to not groom themselves properly so that Sikh women will want to marry men of other religions and ethnicity, or forcing Sikh women to marry others with threats. Sikhs and Punjabis should get wise to German diabolical strategies and tactics and counter them. Again, what I am saying is not a wild guess or conjecture about that video. This is verified truth. Sikh leaders, including the one who wants to be Emperor of Punjab, are under the thumb of the Germans and their Indian allies and have been forced to make such propaganda videos and circulate them among the Sikhs. The Sikh leaders have been forced to keep long, flowing, unkempt beards and mustaches and promote that look among all Sikhs and use semi-literate stooges like Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale to use murder and threats at the point of a gun to force Sikhs to adopt that look and lifestyle. Like they have done in the United States, Britain, and France, they have used this strategy because women don't like unkempt, poorly groomed men. Ultimately, when many Sikh women marry outside the faiths, the Sikhs males are forced also to marry outside the faith. The Sikhs will lose some of their martial spirit to defend their rights as well as their fair color. Sikh leaders who think they are brave and strong when they murder thousands of innocent Sikh youths are in reality cowards who have succumbed to the threats of the Germans and their Indian allies, primarily the Banias and the Rajputs, so that Sikhs as a group lose their main character strengths as well as their fair color. What then is the best course of action for Sikhs and Punjabis going forward? We Sikhs have taken the German and German masqueraders, who are people of German ancestry living in white countries, and we have let them uh, uh, orchestrate murder and abuse for the past 112 years since the events of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre after World War I. We suffered the abuse because we did not know that it was happening as part of a clandestine war against us and who was really behind it. However, the real enemy, Germany and German masqueraders, have been exposed since 2001. Their atrocities against the Sikhs have been fully uncovered only in the past 5 to 7 years. Therefore, first, now we know who the real enemy is and who the Indian alliance partners are, hence our enemies as well. Now we know who we have to protect ourselves against and direct our fire. Second, we are no longer alone. We have the America, British Commonwealth nations, and the Jewish state worldwide, Jewish state of Israel, as our allies to confront the enemy. Also remember our ancient ancestry. All Sikh Jats, Hindu Jats, and Sainis are Jews, and most of the other Punjabis are descendants of the other tribes of Israel, meaning the same people as the Americans, the British, French, Irish, Swiss, Scandinavians, and the people of Benelux countries. So, where do we begin going forward? We Sikhs and Punjabis have to first establish the parameters of how we want to govern ourselves. We do not want a dictatorship. We do not want a king or emperor ruling over us. We want a democracy with elected representatives. Next, we want to establish the rule of law. Some of us, perhaps a few thousands among the 200 million Punjabis, which includes 25 million Sikhs, have committed the heinous crime of murdering a white American or a Briton to avail of the financial rewards offered by the Germans. The Sikh leader who wants to be emperor has gone even further and murdered thousands of innocent Sikh youth to establish his reputation as a tough, ruthless ruler. As if that was not enough, he propped up the semi-literate Bhindranwale to commit more murders. Then, by his own appearance and with threats through Bhindranwale, he promoted the unkempt lifestyle so that Sikh males would not look desirable to women, and many Sikh women have ended up marrying Baniyas, Rajputs, South Indians, and others, thus darkening Punjabis and Sikhs in color as a people. This man is also thoroughly corrupt, having stolen from the people of the state, set up businesses by abusing his position as the Chief Minister of the state, suppressing other entrepreneurs, and stolen even from religious offerings. Then, just because I have voiced my opinion that all criminals, no matter whether high or low, should be brought to justice for their crimes, he has urged his followers in the United States and Canada to murder me, who have already held discussions on how to make attempts on my life. That is how this man operates. Anyone who says anything that negatively affects him, his solution is to put that individual to death. I have committed no crime against this man or anyone else, except to make the statement that all those who have committed crimes should be brought to justice according to the law. In fact, when he came to the United States, I believe in 1999, and visited my then hometown, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Here we are talking about the Sikh political leader. When he visited my then home state, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I gave him a gift of Steuben crystal, a beautiful, majestic sitting lion that heads of state give to other heads of state, which cost me above $2,500. That is how much respect I showed this man. Yet he has put a bounty on my head and conspired with his followers to have me murdered. If he becomes emperor, much Sikh and Punjabi blood will be shed by him to maintain his rule. Past history, in his case, is an indicator of the future for Sikhs and Punjabis if he begins to rule. This man also lacks vision. He does not understand what makes a country great, beginning with economic strength. He has no understanding of how economic development takes place. During his rule, Punjabis have been impoverished such that from being the highest per capita income state in the country, now we are in the middle of a per capita GDP in India while he was enriching himself. This man is not in touch with the reality facing Sikhs and Punjabis. He does not understand that the Germans are exploring all possible ways to destroy us, enslave the survivors, and take over our land. And he is relying on the Germans and their Indian allies to help him become Emperor of Punjab. He has no clue that Modi has been trying every possible way to have all Sikh personnel in all branches of the military killed. We had to kill General Bipin Rawat to warn Modi that any such attempts will lead to the killing of top military, political, and business leaders of India. He is literally in bed with the enemy that is trying to destroy us. Germans and their Indian alliance partners can blackmail him and hold him under their thumb because of the murders he has committed. If this man rules Punjab, there will be no protection for Sikhs and Punjabis from the Germans or other Indians. So here then are the key points of what our agenda should be going forward. Number one, we do not want a king ruling over us, but want to be a democracy. Number two, let's pledge and resolve to be a righteous and courageous people who are living according to the ways of life taught by our gurus and other great teachers, which means living a life of honesty and integrity free of corruption, always doing the right thing nationally and internationally, and not given to threats of people like the Germans, Chinese, or anyone else. Let's resolve not to succumb to evil and given to threats of evil thoughts or nations, or evil individuals or nations. Let's not go to bed with the evil for personal gain, which will always turn out to be at the expense of our people and may lead to our destruction as a people. Number three, because the attempts to destroy the Sikhs, followed by Punjabis, will continue to be made, the greatest need of the hour is that all Sikhs and Punjabis should be united. We cannot be united unless we live by certain agreed upon common principles. These common principles must include the following. A. Punjabis follow different religions. We must resolve that no religion will dictate how government should be run and how citizens should conduct themselves in public. Religion should be practiced privately. B. We have to allow freedom of religion. That means religious preachers should be free to preach their religion to the public, and everyone should be free to choose his or her religion and convert to a different religion if they want to. But no one should be forced to change his religion. Then C. If we want to prosper as a people, we must establish the rule of law. That means criminals must be brought to justice no matter who the criminal is, whether high or low, and a criminal, particularly a murderer, must be considered an enemy of the state, and every citizen should consider it his or her duty to ensure all criminals are brought to justice. We must stop blood feuds and honor killings among us. Those who commit such acts should be treated like any other murderer and brought to justice. Remember, there is no honor in killing a judge or a prosecutor during doing his or her duty if he has convicted some relative or friend who was a murderer and sentenced him or her to death. He or she will die for his or her crime. You have no right to murder law enforcement or Justice Department officials in revenge for that. That means all of society must understand that whoever commits a crime, even if part of a blood feud or honor killing, should be brought to justice by all of society. If we don't establish the rule of law, it will encourage lawlessness and we will get violent murderers as our politicians, leaders, and rulers. And D. We must prevent convicted corrupt officials from coming to power again. This must become part of the law. Number 4. Finally, we must think globally. All leaders have had to no vision beyond ruling our tiny Punjab state and have been satisfied as long as they are average in the rest of India. Our outlook should change so that within a decade or so we become a world class economy and participate in all global institutions. If anyone in the rest of India comes in our way of achieving that, our leaders must not be pusillanimous in confronting them. They must forcefully remove any barriers to our freedom to purchase our economic development, to pursue our economic development. The need of the times is for Punjabis and Sikhs to become a righteous and courageous people who work hard and smart to earn a living. Weed out the corrupt and murderers among us who think they are above the law. They are also under the thumb of the Germans because of the murders they have committed. Their cowardice in doing whatever they are pleased to do by the Germans and their Indian allies has caused Punjabis and Sikhs to be reproached and ridiculed by them. I ask all Punjabis and Sikh leaders to pledge to remove corruption from public life, prosecute the corrupt, agree to enforce the law, keep religion out of politics so that religion does not destroy our unity in achieving our common goals of becoming a powerful nation, capable of facing our challenges from our enemies who are ever scheming to destroy us. We must remove all cowardly leaders who are controlled by the Germans and have caused Punjabis and Sikhs to be reproached and ridiculed by them and other Indians. We do not have any time to lose because our very survival is at stake because of the powerful enemies the Germans have arrayed against us. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please continue to watch my videos and read my articles on important world events, World War III watch, politics, international business, advice on health and medical problems, and much more for in-depth and insightful analysis. Please also subscribe to my YouTube and Facebook channels Unmasked Truth with Harmanjeet Saini to view and get information on the latest videos. Some people do not have the time to go through the full length of videos. They find it more convenient to read the text of the video. Unfortunately, YouTube does not provide the facility to make the text of my videos available on YouTube. But fortunately, Facebook does provide that facility. So I make the text of my videos available on my Facebook channel, which you can then easily copy.